Landscape photography is a powerful way to connect with nature, a reminder of how small we are in the vast world around us. When it comes to landscape photography in Australia, there's arguably no better place than the iconic Great Ocean Road and Otways. A Photographer's Guide to the Great Ocean Road and Otways by Samantha Olsen is a book that provides everything you need to know about 152 different shoot locations, from the best times of day to visit, the ideal seasons, tide heights, drone regulations, even whether you can bring your dog. It's your ultimate guide to photographing the Great Ocean Road and Otways safely and creatively. 4 years of research went into this book, uncovering hidden locations and determining the best and safest times to visit each one. Those of you with limited time, this book will help you make the most of every moment you have. Whether you shoot with a DSLR or mirrorless camera, or if you're planning to visit the Great Ocean Road or Otways, this book can be your essential companion. Here's what you'll find inside: 152 shoot locations, a location breakdown separated into accommodation areas for easy planning, skills for great landscape images focused on seascapes and waterfalls, weather and tidal information. With 750 pages of information and over 1,000 full-colour images and diagrams, this book is a treasure trove of knowledge. This how-to photography guide, combined with a travel guide, all in one beautifully crafted book, gives you everything you need so you don't waste a moment of your trip. So, don't miss out. Visit Kickstarter.com and search for Great Ocean Road book to get your copy today. Choose a package that includes a physical hardcover book to enjoy all the beautiful images, plus an ebook so you can take this guide with you wherever you go. Get ready to discover the Great Ocean Road like never before. Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. Originally from the Netherlands, Kristel Schneider moved from a corporate communications background to building a meaningful career in fine art and landscape photography. Now based in Auvergne, France, Kristel offers insight into how her deep connection with nature influences both her creative process and subject choices. She discusses the emotional and artistic intentions behind her books, Variations in Trees and RIVERSCAPE, emphasising the beauty in everyday natural elements. Kristel reflects on the challenges of managing photography both as an art and a business, and how collaboration, such as her multimedia project with a composer, can expand the emotional range of her work. Her intuitive approach, focus on natural light and texture, and dedication to authenticity allow her to transform ordinary moments into compelling visual stories. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Kristel. How are you going?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. This is where we talk about landscape photography, hopefully, but we can also talk about other subjects. So let's get started.
We will see where it goes.
That's exactly right. Let's start with, what is landscape photography to you? What is it in your life?
I think landscape, photography in general. I think it's not only landscape, it's photography in general is a very big part of my life because I'm a full-time photographer. And it's a way to create, to express myself creatively. It's a very important part, I think, in somebody's life to express yourself creatively.
So, as an artistic endeavour, where did the art start? Because a lot of photographers start off recording either a daily scene or a travel scene or something, and there's not a lot of art in it at the beginning for most people. Some people, that's why they start photography, but other people, it starts a little bit later where they go, this is more than just recording that scene, it's actually now art. Where did that happen for you?
Yeah. Now, art in general started very early in Amsterdam, a very long time ago when I was still living there. I did a painting class there. But soon I realized I couldn't paint at all. I couldn't draw. So that was a very, so the teacher, he he tried, he did all kinds of nice workshops and stuff like that. And it was actually an entertaining class, but very technical also. And yeah, it didn't fit me. So I thought, okay, what can I do differently? And then my brother, he worked at a photo shop, and he always had beautiful cameras in his room. And as a youngster, I was never allowed, of course, to touch them. So when I was older and lived in Amsterdam, I thought, okay, I'm going to buy my own cameras. So I bought my first, I think it was a Minolta camera. And that's where basically it started as a weekend holiday photographer. And then later on, after my work, you change your occupation, your life goes on. And then you see things differently, of course. And now I think I look at landscapes, at scenes different in a way of, I don't always look at the reality, but I also look at shapes and forms and textures, and that's very important. And I think it started there in Amsterdam, and I took it along my route in the photography.
Awesome. Sounds fairly interesting. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper and find out what was the first point where you said, this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
I don't know if it's for the rest of my life, but at least a big part of my life. But because
for as long as you want to keep doing it.
No, I think it's I told you I was in Amsterdam, and then I moved to France. And my parents already introduced us to nature. We walked always in the Dolomites in Italy, and
beautiful.
A lot of weekends we were in the forest. We walked there as a family. So I was already also very young interested in nature. But when I was living in Amsterdam, there's not a lot of forest or big nature around it. So when I moved to France, I got reconnected basically to that nature feeling. And there my passion for landscape photography, I think, started to become more and more every day. I went out and I created my own business there in France because I created workshops there.
Sure. Okay.
And I thought, that's what I really want to do the rest of the day and the life. And because it's such a great feeling to walk in nature alone, but also to take people along and to express and to show what you love in nature, to teach what you.
Absolutely.
So that expanded, and I think I wanted to make my profession of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's what I did.
What is it that inspires you? Is it a moment in time and particular light? Is it people and other art? Is it a place? What are the things that make you go, okay, that's interesting, I want to dig into that?
I like a lot, but I think what I like most are textures and color contrast and these subtle things in nature. I always get drawn to the common subject. It's things that you see every day around you, but we are so busy in life that a lot of people pass them very fast, so you don't realize what's all around you. And now that as a photographer you have time, or you take the time to observe better, and you get better skilled, your eyes get skilled to look at things differently. So for me, the thrill is for example, if it's in between seasons and the trees are just opening up the buds, and you have these textures in the landscape. It can be a color tint, can be a certain nuance in texture or depth in your landscape. And that's what I really like, looking for these in the wider landscape, because I like intimate landscapes. I like the little scenes within the wider landscapes.
Awesome. What is it that draws you to those tiny vignettes as opposed to the grand vistas?
I don't know. A lot of people like to take the wider angles and to take it all. And I think you miss a lot if you don't look around you, what's behind, what's on the floor or just next to you, or what. There are so many things that, for me, they show much more detail than that wider vista. And then maybe that's back to art. I like to create a kind of smaller landscape or smaller object from these elements. I put them together in one frame. And that's what I like in the textures and in the color contrast and the repetition and the lines. And there is so much to explore
Absolutely.
In a bigger area. But yeah, that's why I always say, okay, it's nice one big vista, but yeah, it's also nice to, okay, what do you see there? There's maybe a light.
There could be 1,000 compositions in that broad vista.
Exactly, and that's for me
Unique and
the
interesting on their
yeah
own.
the joy and the passion, maybe to observe, to see where the light touches, maybe a branch or a piece of mountain valley, or I don't, yeah, there's so many things that you can see in a landscape, the mist, the weather, all the elements that work along or not, sometimes not, but
Yeah. Some of your work almost borders on abstract. Is that
mhm.
a big influence in your work and your style?
Now it changed over the years because
Okay.
I started very realistic. I captured, or I composed basically what I saw, and yeah, I didn't put my own thing in it. I thought just copied what I saw, and
Sure.
there's nothing wrong with it. That's
Oh,
beautiful.
absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. But over the years, I felt that okay, it was not enough for me. I wanted to experiment. I wanted to see other things, and then I just tried out things, and I did multiple exposure. I used other camera techniques like ICM, and I thought,
Mhm.
hey, that's funny, and that looks nice, and then you combine the copy part, the realistic part, with an abstract part sometimes, and then
Yeah.
it becomes something of yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
And for me, that's really fun. And yeah, nowadays it gets more and more because I feel that's more to my heart at the moment.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
The process of experimentation for some people can be quite difficult because they'll try a technique or try a composition and it doesn't quite work for them. For me, that's definitely part of the learnings that you get out of experimentation. How did you deal with those? I don't want to say failures because that's not the right word. Disappointments where you go, okay, I've tried this, that didn't work. All right, what do I need to adjust? How did you deal with those feelings that you get where you've maybe spent hours going to a location, worked the scene, and come back and gone,
Yeah.
that didn't work?
Yeah, I always say I'm very not okay. I know the techniques and I know the basic and I know how to take a photo, but I'm not a very technical person, I
Sure.
say. I'm more an intuitive person. So for me, if I go out, for example, a day in the mountains, I let nature inspire me. So
Okay.
if I use these techniques, I look at, yeah, at that moment, what does it feel? How do I express that feeling into an image? So for me, it's not a failure. It's sometimes more difficult of how can I create what I feel, what I see with these techniques. And
Yeah.
that's by doing and doing. And the more you do it,
The better
the
you get.
more, yeah, the better you get, it easier it gets. And of course, sometimes you think, what's this? No, this is not what I want. Or, wow, this is ugly.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you
What was
don't
I
have,
thinking?
yeah, but I think you don't have to shoot, I don't know, 200 or 300 photos a day to become a good photographer. You really have to choose that's over the years. You
Hmm.
take less photos. At least I take less photos, but I try to, yeah, take the right one, feel the
Yeah.
right one.
Yeah.
What's in front of me? Take the time. And that's also something you learn over the years that, okay, you can shoot your whole cards full with all kinds of photos and then go into the bin. But you can also think, okay, I do less, I experiment, but yeah,
Okay.
see what you can do with what you have and take your time.
Yeah. You mentioned the feelings and the emotions. Is there a
Yeah.
specific feeling or deep emotional connection you've got that you've had during shooting a particular landscape? And could you tell us a bit about that?
No, it's more, I think everybody has that when they go out and you have days that doesn't come, the creativity.
Yeah.
You walk and you look around and it just doesn't come in. It doesn't work. And that has to do with the other daily life you have, the things that go ahead. For example, my mother passed away in last February.
Mm.
At the moment, my photography is not very inspiring, not very creative because I'm still in the process of dealing with her loss. And I think that these type of things that happen in your life have a big influence on your creativity.
Oh,
And it can
absolutely.
also be a happy moment, can also be if you experience happy things in your life, then then maybe all the colors around you that come in very easily because you. And that's, I think, I feel with that's what I mean about feelings, that they have so much influence on how you create things and how you observe things, how you develop your own process. I don't know. I always say, I also organize photo tours. I work together with a Dutch photo tour organization. So
Yep.
you have little groups of people, and that's very interesting to see how people, they're all different. Everybody experience a place differently. They feel differently. The one is very technical, and the other one experiments more. But there are also people who say, I don't have it today. I'm tired. It doesn't come in, work. No, then just enjoy. Be there,
That's right.
enjoy the surrounding, let it come to you, and maybe it will come back in a couple of hours or not. That's also good. But I think it's good to let it in.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Is that how you deal with the times when there is no inspiration? You're sitting there going, I don't really want to take the camera out of the bag. It's just,
Sometimes yes. Sometimes I walk around and then I think, the light is not okay, or I don't see the textures, or there are too many people around me. That's
yeah,
also sometimes happens that you don't. Okay, you go early, but there are other people also decided to go early. Then you think, I wish I was alone. Yeah, you have these moments, and then the camera stays in, or I take a couple of photos, and then I already sometimes know they go to the bin.
yeah,
Then I'm not a person that immediately comes home and put the card in and looks at the images. There are a lot of photographers who do that and they want to see, what did I do? No, for me, it's also, okay, let it rest. And maybe a couple of days or sometimes even later if I don't have the time. I upload the images, I look at them, and then, I maybe get that feeling back. Or, I think it's very important that you don't get disappointed also,
yeah,
because you never get that feeling immediately
yeah.
after you come back.
So,
I don't know how that is with you. Do you come home and you
well,
put your car?
I come home and I make sure they're backed up. And
Yeah, okay.
while they're backing up, the software I use, the images flick up. I can make them large screen, but they just flick up in a little window in the corner of
Yeah,
the screen. So I have a look at them and I go, oh,
yeah.
okay, that one looks good. That I don't know what I was thinking there. That was absolute rubbish. Oh, that's another rubbish one. And that's another rubbish.
Yeah.
But
But maybe that rubbish one is a week later.
and that's where I was going is sometimes
Yeah,
I will come back and it might be a month, a year, 6 years later, and you go, okay, how did I miss that? That actually
yeah,
I can work that. And it's because you're not in the moment and the excitement of coming home and opening up the files and starting to look at it.
yeah,
It's more you've had that time and experience gaining between when you first took that shot and
yeah.
where you are now. You might know more about processing. There might be a new processing technique that you could use. You might say, actually, that just needs to be a black and white image. And I'm not saying you can fix a pig's ear with black and white, but
No, no.
occasionally you go, okay, that actually looks all right in black and white. It looks terrible in color, but in black and white, it actually looks fine.
Yeah,
So for me, having that separation, I think, is important, and
yeah,
it's sometimes though I do get excited and I go, yeah, I really want to. I know I got a banger. It was a
yeah,
fantastic sunrise or whatever it was,
yeah,
and I know the shot. I know about where it was, and I will go flicking through, and I may do a quick edit on that, and
yeah.
that will satisfy me, and then I can move on to other things. But yeah, having that separation, I think, actually makes a big difference to the way you look at an image
Exactly. Yeah.
because you haven't got that immediacy and the I guess the expectation from where you had just been to coming back.
Yeah, because
So
sometimes you have that, because then you
yeah,
think in the field, you say, oh, wow, this is going to be nice. This is going to be nice. Especially with experiments, you think, now I have something, maybe it's nice. And then when you look at them, you think, oh my God,
yeah,
didn't work.
exactly.
On the little screen, it looked okay, but on the big screen, you say, oh no, it didn't work.
I just came back from a month in Vietnam, and
Yeah,
I Deliberately, I did not take my laptop with me. I looked at a few on the back of the camera and uploaded them onto my phone,
Yeah,
and I took an iPad so that I could see them at a reasonable size. But that
yeah,
was the only time I looked at them. The early ones I then didn't look at for a month until I got back. And
yeah,
so there was a nice clear separation. And that was a deliberate experiment, because many times I go on travels and I'll take my laptop and I'll be eager to get them backed up first off, but
yeah.
also I want to have a look at and see what I've captured. But yeah, I'm interested in how that works for you, though, in terms of, is it a deliberate process where you say, okay, I don't want to look at these, or is it just that's how you just decided to work that day?
It's not a deliberately process because I think yes, sometimes I just don't have the time or I don't make the time or but I think I prefer a little bit of distance. Yeah, I to work really work on them. I take a little bit my distance because for me a big part when I process my images, I also put music on my head.
Yeah, okay.
And then I get in, sometimes in a yeah the certain mood or the certain atmosphere again. What I think, okay, that fits that mood of the day, and then I get into the scene, and then I can work on them differently. Because if I go blank in them, and I just look at it, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work with me. I
Yeah.
like to work really with music on my head, and yeah,
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 I'm always interested in how people work, what their processing actually looks like, and
yeah,
whether it's okay. I know this is going to be a portfolio shot, so I'm going to spend a week or a month
yeah,
actually
yeah,
editing and re-editing and trying different things to perfect that image. And there's other
yeah,
people that I know and that I've spoken to who are just like, I don't even want to edit. They do, but they don't like
yeah.
it. I
No,
personally, I can't understand a photographer that doesn't enjoy editing, because
big
it's the
part of
darkroom part of
the
the process as
yeah.
far as I'm concerned. Each to their own. What is your process like?
Yeah, but I said I come home and then I also back up them because that's very important,
Yeah, yeah,
especially when you work on a big project and you spend the whole day outside and you think, okay, I just back up them. And then, yeah, what I said, if I work on a project, then maybe I go every day. So
right.
then I don't have the time to work on them or whatever. So I just back up them. And then after a couple of weeks, I said, okay, now I have to go back to what I have. I look if I have, okay, what I want, and then I just put the ones aside. I think, okay, rubbish is very fast, first impression,
Sure.
but I don't throw them away. I
Yeah,
just
just
select the
move them
ones.
aside and leave them till later, maybe.
Yeah, I just select the ones I think, okay, these I want to work on. And then I spent, yeah, evenings or something. I said, okay, now I take a couple and I work on them. And then I really spend time with them. It's
Mm.
not a fast selection, but then I'm going to really process them. And then I don't think I'm a person who process a lot on the image because I think you can do much more. If I see other photographers, they do a lot.
Yeah.
I'm very basic towards the feeling. I think, okay, this is what I want to express and not more. I don't scream with the colors and I don't remove things and I don't know what, but
Yeah, okay.
yeah, I like it calm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned working on projects. I've got
Yeah.
a couple of questions that I want to get into there. One is, how important is it to you to have projects when you're working? And the second question I'll come back to after you answer that one. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Now, for me, I think, yeah, in the beginning, I took a lot of images and it were only single shots, not a lot of series. And
Yep.
in the beginning of your work or of your career, it's maybe okay to say, okay, just create single images or you do a reportage or whatever for a certain,
Sure.
but they're not a series or whatnot. And then I thought, yeah, I want to deepen the subject. For me, it was a challenge to say, okay, how can I create a subject from a series of images? And yeah, then it becomes a project. And
Mm,
then you create a kind of theme from it. For example, my first project in the Auvergne here in France was about trees.
sure.
Because I was brought up in Holland in the forest, and I walked with my family, and I thought, okay, there are so many different trees here, so beautiful, and that's really a subject we pass every day. Every
Mm,
trees we pass so many trees, we don't really look at them. So I thought, okay, let me see what type of trees we have in and capture them in a different way. So I made a project of it. I went to different mountain valleys, behind the house, in the garden, wherever I was. I decided to create images of trees that are characteristic, didn't always have to be totally whole. There could be a branch off or whatever. I didn't care, but it's just for me. Yeah, what did it show, that tree, to me?
Yeah,
Was it very old? So was it a charismatic tree, or was it just the textures? Was it naked or whatever? So that was my first project and my first book also. And I was very happy with working the way I did back then, because I thought, okay, you really deepen in one subject and you see constantly different things, because you skip the other parts you want to, because I didn't hardly take any other photos anymore, only the trees. And then you only see trees at one point because you're so focused on that project.
yeah.
And so that was stopped. It was like also an end of an exam or an end of a
Wow.
course. You feel like, okay, empty, because okay, now the book is done and what am I going to do? So it took me a while to think about another project again. And that was my latest project, RIVERSCAPE,
Yep.
about a river in Allier. I like to have a project close by, home, because then you don't have to travel too much. And although it's a long river, so I had to drive a couple of hours, but not fly. That was
Fair enough. Yeah.
And that is a river everybody crosses every day here, because it goes it's like a vein through the landscape. And it's everywhere. Basically, you hop over that river. And one day I remember I was looking down, and when I was passing it with the car, and I said, oh, wow, great light, great reflections and things. Why don't they start exploring that river?
Yeah.
And that's how the second project started. And in the beginning, I thought, okay, where do I start? Because it was totally different river than I known in Holland. In Holland, there are more canals, very straight,
Man-made,
man-made.
basically.
A lot. And here you have still, pure nature, and it's rough and different altitudes, and big parts you can't reach because it's rough. So I thought, okay, where do I start? So I really had to make an idea for myself and create a kind of storyline from that river. And also, I looked at other books from that river, because I thought, I don't want to copy the same. I don't want to do the same. But I noticed that there was not a book from the whole river flow, from the whole river, from the beginning to the end, only about certain areas with the birds and the flowers, and not only landscape.
Yeah.
And hardly any intimate landscape also. So I thought, okay, that's it. I'm going to create a storyline of that river, how I see it.
You found the niche in the market.
Yeah. No, So, and then I thought, okay, that's one thing. Okay. But I wanted also, because I work with music on my, when I process my images, I thought, that one has to play an important part of this project.
Yeah.
So I worked together with an Italian music composer, a pianist. And so I was doing the images, and he was composing, looking at my images, a special album for the RIVERSCAPE project.
Nice.
So that's worked perfectly together.
Okay.
And we both had a challenge, because I had to look at landscape. It was not everywhere, it was not spectacular. So you really had to do a lot of visits and explore and get into the mood and get creative.
Yeah.
And it was the first time he composed on assignment, basically, and on images. He said, that's also was new for him. So it was for both of us a nice project to work on. And
I love a multimedia collaboration. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so he did his RIVERSCAPE concert with my images on the screen on the stage, and and I did the expositions, and I have the book, and we're combining this stuff now in Europe, so that's great.
You've already touched on my second question, which is, I know you've got a book.
Yeah.
It was about that, but you've done that. So why not do the blatant plug and tell people where they can get it and how they get a hold of it?
I have two books, but the first book is Variations in Trees. There are not that many copies left, but some. And my newest book is RIVERSCAPE, and you can find them on my website, www.kristelschneider.com.
Also, the link in the description.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. I think you talked about a couple of things that really piqued my interest. One is collaboration with the composer. How did you meet him, and what was that somebody that you sought out, or was it a chance meeting? How did that actually come about?
When I was doing presentations for variations in trees for festivals and stuff, I was looking for music that I already had on my head, but also fit the presentations and stuff. So I looked him up online, and I contacted him if I could use his music for my presentation. And that's what we exchanged emails, and then I sent him my book. And he loved the work, and I loved his music. And then he said, maybe one day we have to work together and do something.
Wow.
But what and how? And so years went by. And then I started RIVERSCAPE, as I said. And then I thought, okay, I wanted music to play an important role. So for me, Fabrizio Patellini, that's his name.
Yep.
That was the guy I had to ask. And he immediately said yes, because, first of all, he knew my work. But second, he also lives close to the River Po. So he's very well connected also to a river.
Yeah.
So he said, I think, this is perfect, because he always wanted to do something with water and the river, but never got an idea. So he said, this is a great idea to work together. And so, combining everything.
Awesome. As I said, I really love a multimedia collaboration. It's great when things like that just happen. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's also a nice experience if you create, for example, a book and an album. It had to be the same cover. From the album, and I can get up and show you the album and the book.
That's great. Yeah.
Prepare that. I didn't. Yeah.
All good.
Okay, so this is the album.
Yeah.
And it's nicely if you look at it, it's
very
also
nice.
with the photo. Yeah, and a photo from me on it also. So that was very nice. And there's also a booklet in it, and also with the photo.
With some of your photos, yeah. Lovely.
Yeah. And this is the book.
Right.
And then we had to discuss, what's the logo? What's the photo going to be on the thing? And then you have different countries, you have different designers, you have different, you have the musician, you have the photographer. And so that was an interesting process, I have to admit. It was because, you have all different ideas about it. And also I look, of course, differently at the book. Yeah. I look at the bubble at the end where it has to be cut and stuff like that. But a musician, he doesn't look at these things. But so we had the designers. That was also nice to see, because you have a Dutch designer. Now, the Dutch, they're very direct, they know what they want.
Yep.
And you have an Italian designer, and they're, they're not always saying the back of their tongue. And so it was a very interesting and fruitful discussion sometimes. And but at the end, I think we're happy with it, because it speaks for the album and it speaks for the book.
I think it's absolutely marvelous. And I'm definitely going to be looking up a copy right after we finish here, and see if I can get a hold of the album out here. Unfortunately, I'll have to try and get it either as a download or a CD, because I don't have a vinyl player anymore.
Well, there is a CD, and it's also on Spotify.
Perfect. Yeah, either of those, they will definitely work. So anybody looking for RIVERSCAPE, definitely get on it. From just looking at the album itself, and the transparent vinyl disc is absolutely awesome. I think the whole design concept is absolutely fabulous. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
With that project, what do you think the most important thing that you learnt, either about yourself or about that process, that you'd like to share with the audience?
Working in projects, you always do. It can be a short-term project or a long-term. This was a long-term project from a couple of years, and luckily it was a couple of years, because I started just before the COVID.
Yep.
I went into the field. It was January, and I think in March we were totally in lockdown, and you know how it all went. So that's everything postpones then. So I think I learned a lot about planning. Because if you have a deadline for bringing out an album. A book you can move a little bit in the dates, but if you have a musician that has concerts and has a deadline an album, and then it's different planning than
Absolutely.
when you're an individual photographer. That was a bit of a pressure because also during that process I broke my ankle.
Oh,
So I some downfalls in the project, but yeah, I think I learned from it that I have to do a better planning. That's better.
okay.
That's for me learning from because I had a very busy summer before the book release and the album release
Hmm.
because basically I had to do everything in a couple of months. I think, creating a book, it's my first book, I did the image selection myself. And the second book, and what I learned from the first book is that you have to do your image selection with somebody else also. It's
Yeah.
good for the overall, because now it's just your baby and you have so many images. And a lot of people tell me, why didn't you put this one in the book? And why not that one? And why not that one? I said, yeah, but I think if you for RIVERSCAPE, I had a couple of people, the designers and other photography friends and myself, and also people who are non-photographers.
Okay. Yeah.
That's also important because this is a wider public than only.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're not just selling to photographers. Yeah.
Exactly. I said that's what from this project also, that it was good to have more people look at your images for the selection. So I think if
Yeah.
people do a book, do it with more people, take your time, do a good planning, stuff like that. Yeah.
I think that image selection, whether it's as basic as a portfolio view on your website, a carousel or something on your website that's showing off your work, or
Yeah.
whether it's an exhibition that you're preparing for, or whether it's a book that you're creating, that
Yeah.
image selection is all important. And I totally resonates with me that you've actually got to get feedback from other people because
Yeah.
otherwise you're there on your own trying to work out and you love that image,
Yeah, exactly.
but it might not work with some of the others quite as well as that image.
Yeah. Now, with the cover, I was quite I selected some I really liked on the cover.
Sure. Yeah.
And then we did the cover selection with the group, and then at least you get one of the images you like.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this also had a kind of line, not a storyline. So that also had to fit in the book.
Yeah.
And there are some images in it I wouldn't have chosen, strangely enough.
Oh, I was going to ask, how much control did you have over what actually
Totally full control. But if you have a group of people
saying that
that
that's in, that's out?
and that's in, that's out, and you're the only one who's saying no, it mustn't be in. I think maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, this time I let also other people decide for this book.
That, that, that's a
But
really interesting concept, is actually letting other people help make the decision.
yeah,
How did you deal with those sort of feelings, though? Because, like any photographer, every photo has its own meaning to you.
yeah.
May have a completely and utterly different meaning to somebody that's looking at it with fresh eyes. How did you deal with the feelings of going, okay, you're putting something
Some
that I don't
killing
like?
your darlings, eh? Some is really killing your darlings because you say, yeah, but this one you really needs. Yeah, but there are also many in from that. There are many in for that. Of course, I had, of course, a big selection to choose
Sure,
from,
sure.
but I also had to be aware that it was not a tree book again because there are a lot of trees along
Sure,
the
sure.
river.
Yeah.
So you have to have a different view of things. And yeah, and I wanted to also put some abstract in and some, that it was a good mix of the whole river. And yeah, but sometimes I thought, okay, that one not then, but there are enough in that I really were. So it's not that it's not my book because otherwise I wouldn't have published it. But yeah,
Yeah.
there are one or maybe five or six that I think, okay, maybe,
Okay.
yeah, but yeah.
Brilliant. I want to move on to how you made the decision to become a full-time photographer. What was that process like for you? What were you thinking at the time? And how easy was it to make the decision to become a full-time photographer?
Not easy. As I said in the beginning, I lived in Amsterdam. I worked for a pharmaceutical company as a communication advisor. So I
Right.
was in the corporate world.
Yep.
But in my free time, what was not a lot back then, I was already out with my camera. But at one point, I was around my 40s, I think. I thought, is this what I want in my life?
Yeah.
Running from one project communication project to the other, and all these deadlines and meetings and travels, because I had to travel a lot. And I thought, okay, it's not fun anymore. It's not, and it's only stress. And I was at the beginning of a burnout, I had to admit.
Yeah.
I was a workaholic. I loved working, but yeah, it was at one point I thought, okay, there must be more than only this.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, the love of my life lives in France, so I thought, okay, at one point you have to make a decision, or it becomes Holland, or it becomes France.
Sure.
And I changed my life. I thought, okay, I'm going to follow my heart in two ways. And photography was the second one. And I thought, okay, let's see what I can do with it.
Fair enough.
And so it was not easy because, yeah, you give up a good paid job. Exactly. But yeah, it didn't make me happy. So I thought, okay, let's try something else. Be bold and turn the wheel totally and see where it goes. I can always turn it back at one point if you really think that it doesn't work for you. So I tried, and it was hard, especially building up a clientele, making people, yeah, that you get known, especially in a male-orientated
Yeah, very true.
business. Yeah, so I created workshops in Auvergne. I had the first, repertoire in the area, and then gradually I became more known, and I was asked at festivals and exhibitions and stuff like that. And then, yeah, it grows a bit. But yeah, it's still difficult, of course. But I'm happier. Let's say it like that. That's the most important thing.
I think that is the most important thing, because if you're not happy in your job, you should be thinking about a change. I'm not saying to
Yeah.
anybody out there that is unhappy that they should immediately jump into photography, because
Oh no.
it's a tough way of making a living.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think all the jobs that are creative are difficult because it's a difficult genre. It's a niche.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be good at it. You have to be different. You have to try things out, and yeah, and then not always the good ones get the best.
No.
But yeah, you have
Yeah,
to
the quality of work
try.
doesn't always reflect the reward that you might get.
Exactly. But yeah, as long as you still can pay the bills and try your thing, and yeah, but yeah, we will see where it goes.
Fair enough. How do you find balancing your photography business and the rest of your life? Because everyone has other things to do, and there's, as you said, bills to pay, etc., etc. That
Yeah.
balancing act of, okay, I've got to be creative, I've got to have time for editing and getting all the photography pieces, but then I got to do marketing, I got to do finances, etc., etc. How do you balance all of that?
I think photography is 100% part of your life. I think you can't put off your cap and say, oh, now I'm not a photographer. I think that's different with other jobs because sometimes it's also a bit tiring. I don't know how it's with you, but when I walk around, I always see
Oh,
frames,
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
see images, and I always see things.
Driving
And
past.
sometimes I
Yeah.
hear, yeah, and but it helps if you don't bring your camera. You just
Yeah.
go and do your thing. But that's one thing, and I still I think I'm a bit of a workaholic because I'm doing my photography, yeah, constantly. I don't look at weekends, I don't look at the times, or I just fill in my days where I think, okay, it's nice now to go out, it's nice now to work on the marketing part. Is you make a kind of other planning. And of course, what we talked before we recorded, I like cooking. I have to cook and I have to do the daily things. We have a dog. We have to all the other things we have. But I
Yeah.
think if you're independent, you have more freedom of
You've
doing
got the
planning.
flexibility to choose how much time you spend on everything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And because as a photographer, if you want to survive, you have to do N. You can't only be in the field. What you said, you have to do all the other things. I'm traveling a lot because I'm doing these photo tours. Yeah, that's also nice, and but it also pays the bills. Not all of them, but some. Yeah, and so you do festivals, you do exhibitions, do all kinds of things that can bring in a little bit of income, and that all
Mm.
together, that is your job.
Yeah. I'm always interested in how people market their personal brand. And as you said, you've got to get yourself known. How did you go about that? What sort of things were you doing to get build up your clientele base?
Now, I think the photo tours help a lot because, yeah, that goes from mouth to mouth and people get to know you and presentations and being out there on festivals. In France, you have a lot of photo festivals.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a bit of a change now after the COVID. I don't know why, but there are less people coming, at least in France. So, yeah, we have to think about other things again. And that's what I'm busy at the moment. What are these other things and how can you be out there?
Mm.
One of them is, of course, talking to you. Huh?
Absolutely.
Exactly. No, but also other podcasts and other things. I'm not really a fan. I don't like to put myself in the picture a lot. That's my problem. I'm not a very out. I'm a bit
Well,
shy.
yeah, a lot of photographers are introverted and they don't like
Yeah.
being in the limelight and they don't like being in the frame of the photo
Oh no,
even.
absolutely not. But you have to, otherwise it's part
Absolutely.
of your job.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm doing it. But it's not the absolute fun part for me. Although it's nice to talk to you, no worries.
that's
But
fine.
yeah, I do rather other things, walking around with my camera. But yeah, as I come from a communication background, I know a little bit, yeah, for
Mm.
writing, for what works in communication, what not. Of course, it changed a lot over the years, but yeah, I read a lot. I try to be up to date in that part, and that helped, of course, also with the marketing of the book.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I'm
so.
always very keen to explore how people think when they're marketing in particular, but I think also it does help with people that are running their own business. They have to have that sort of marketing mindset, even though a lot of photographers, that's not necessarily their forte. Having a background of it would help, but not everyone has that.
Yeah,
What
I
tips
think
could you give to somebody that doesn't have a marketing background that they could use to say, okay, this is what I think will work to get you marketing your personal brand better?
yeah. I was not marketing communication. I was more corporate internal project
Oh,
and
okay.
press. But it helps a little bit also the press. But
Yeah,
what I always say is stick to yourself. Don't sell something you not are.
yeah,
I always I am always myself. Okay, I'm shy. I can be saying stupid things sometimes. I'm not a native English speaker, but I just speak. Just try to be yourself, how you
yeah,
are, and don't sell a person that you're not are. That you're. Sometimes I see photographers. They are out there and they are the best.
yep.
Maybe they're not,
I know
and
it.
I think it's very important also for me, for example, people who come with me on photo tours. I think it's very important to choose the photographer you feel comfortable with, where you like the work, because a good photographer is not always a good photo guide or a good
Absolutely.
photo
Yeah,
teacher. I think that these are all important selling points from who are you, what do you want to sell, and yeah, sell only the products you stand behind for that are really you. That's for me the most important thing. Be you.
with your workshops, what can somebody expect coming on one of your workshops?
At the moment, I do the photo tour mainly, and then I go, yeah, people. It's a small group
Yep,
of people. I am connected with a Dutch photo tour organization, but we have people from all over the world, and then it's an English-speaking group if we have other people. People can expect that, yeah, you brought to locations. We know exactly where. It's a group of 8 photographers we have, and we each have our own photo travels. So I
yep,
go to Iceland with another photographer, the Theo Bosboom. Maybe you know him. I go to Estonia. I go to Brittany, and there we take the little group to the places we think that are nice places to explore,
sure.
and not always the hot shots and hot spots and where everybody goes, because
Mm.
I like to go into places that are not overcrowded, because then you don't have the space for yourself,
Yep,
and we take the time, so it's not running from one place to the other. We are sometimes a whole morning or a whole afternoon on one location, because I think it's important that you grow in your subject. When you're there, you have the time to explore, you have the time to walk around, and you also have the time to think, oh, I don't have it at the moment. And
yep,
I try to bring you into that frame of mind. So what can you see here? What do I see here?
mm,
Without trying to push my own photography, because I look differently than other people.
yep.
Yeah, and then you also come back sometimes to the same spot. So
Mm.
that if you have other lights and we discuss photos and maybe you saw images from other participants, you think, I haven't seen that. Maybe I want to explore that. And then it's the time, and you can come back to that spot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and different. The one is 9 days, one is 6 days. So it's you have shorter and longer ones, but always with the same-minded people, and I think that's very important.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that also are single, or the husband says, "Oh, please go, because then I don't have to bother with that." So then they're together with, yeah, they can talk during dinner with only about photography or other things in life,
Yeah.
but like-minded, and that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
yeah.
What is one of the places that keeps calling you back, and why is it that it keeps calling you back?
Difficult one. I think there's a valley here in the Auvergne. I'm not going to call the name because then it's already a renowned valley, but I like to keep it. But it's a mountain valley. It's surrounded by it's closed in, and you
Mhm.
have to walk 30 minutes or something to come there, 30,
Yep.
35 minutes. And when you're there the first in the morning with the early morning crispy snow, and there is
Beautiful.
nothing, only the sound of the birds, or
Uh-huh.
the snow, that cracking from your
Yeah, that
snowshoe.
cracking sound there.
And that for me is, yeah, magnificent. I always like to go back there with the fresh snow, with the first snow, with, if I can, I go.
Fantastic.
And there's my favorite trees. There are so many things you can, yeah, create there, from the textures, the details, and it's never the same. Every time it's different.
Yeah.
Blowing wind, snow, sun, whatever.
One of the things that has come out over the course of the podcast, and I've spoken to almost every guest about this, is that sort of nexus between the locations that you like to go to and how that has shaped your photography. How has living in the Auvergne, for example, shaped how you've changed your photography from when you first arrived?
Yeah, a lot, because Amsterdam is totally different than here, the countryside. Although I loved, yeah, taking photos of the canals and stuff like that. But when I arrived here, I sometimes say that a single walnut tree behind my home changed my photography a lot.
Awesome.
Because when we arrived in this home, we had to renovate a lot, so I didn't have time to go out with the camera a lot. And it's a walnut tree that we see behind our home, the window, and I call it the window view tree. And it is not the tree itself that's so spectacular, because it's just one single walnut tree in a meadow, and yeah, it's a tree. But it's the scenery, the weather that makes let's say if there's a storm, or if there's another sky, or the sky, let's say the sky behind the walnut tree creates the image. So every
Right.
time there is a different weather prediction, I have to look out of the window and see what it does with the tree, because it changes all the time.
Absolutely.
And I think even this week I posted an image again of that walnut tree, because it was a thunderstorm. So she had the dark sky with a little bit of blue from the blue that was before. But I have orange backgrounds. I have all kinds of backgrounds of that tree. But just by looking at that, it changed my way of, yeah, of looking at trees, for example. And maybe
Yeah.
that's the even part of the Variations in Trees book, because that was the first tree I took a photo of. So I think, yeah, maybe that is it.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
What's your most memorable photography experience?
That's also here in the Auvergne. I became a member of a very small photography group of three guys, and I was the only woman, and we would go out to places and we would take photos and stuff like that.
Sure, sure.
And for me, it was a great way to get to know the area. And one day, Cyril, he called me and he said, come on, Chris, we have to go into the mountain because it's beautiful light. Take your snowshoes. I said, yeah, I don't have snowshoes. I don't know how that works. So he said, okay, I have a pair. I will bring you up. And I told him, I said, yeah, I haven't walked on snowshoes a lot. So he said, no, it will be okay, blah, blah, blah. Now, we went up in the afternoon. We walked slowly up to the top.
Sure.
And it was quite a walk, but it was beautiful. And then we stayed there till the sun went down. It was pink. It was beautiful with, again, snow. Sorry, I love snow. And it was that white reflecting with the pink, and it was mesmerizing. It was so beautiful. And I was like, okay, And then he said, yeah, you were not so experienced in your snowshoes. He said, okay, now we have to go down and it's frozen a bit.
Okay.
So I said, okay. So then I got scared because we were in the middle of nowhere and he is an experienced off-piste skier. So
Yeah.
he knows when there is avalanches and whatever. So he said, okay, here we don't go down, we go down there. I said, yeah, but and then? And he said, okay, you take my sticks and I go backwards and we walk down slowly. So step by step. So my whole photography scene went already away. I was totally in stress. I was walking. He looked at me and he guided me down. And at one point he said, okay, now we're safe. If we fall now, we're not falling on rocks anymore. And I was like, okay. So that made me think, okay, I really have to be prepared for these type of things. I'm not a mountain girl, but yeah, after it stayed with me forever because I had great photos after I calmed down. And yeah, that experience with my snowshoes and going down, yeah, that was something.
Awesome. Awesome. What is the best and or worst piece of advice anyone has given you?
Oh my God. Now, maybe the best, yeah, that is, I think everybody knows Jim Brandenburg. I think you know Jim Brandenburg. I had the privilege of speaking to him for not for a podcast, for a blog for my website.
Yep.
So I had some interviews with him, and he gave the advice to cherish the little things in life, the common subjects, the things that, what I say, everybody passed by very fast.
Yeah.
And we had a very nice conversation about that. Just the subjects that people are not interested in, that people, yeah. And I don't know, I often in my photography think about that conversation because I really love the common subject and the little things, the details and stuff like that. So I think that was a very good advice from him when I started saying, okay, forget all these sunrise and sunsets and all these wow photos and stay with your heart and follow only your own way and not follow what other people like, but follow what you like. So that I think it was a very important one. The worst, to be honest, I don't have it didn't stick with me. Maybe I just put it away then. I have no.
No, that's okay. Some people forget the worst advice, and that's good advice. Forget the worst advice you get.
Yeah, because I tend to move on and I forget things then again. Yeah.
What do you see as photography's place in society?
I think image in its in a wider sense is very important. I think for telling stories, illustrate things. People who are not very good in with words can express themselves very well in with images and photography. Yeah, I think it will always stay because an image says so many things what words can't do. So yeah, I think it's not only it's image in general. I think it's important.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
In short.
What do you see as the future of photography? Where do you see photography going?
Yeah, I think it always will play a part. What I say because of what I said before about the imagery and the importance it has in communication. Of course, there are a lot of threats. People think it's going to push away photography, but maybe the how do you say the big consumption that will be taken over by AI, but the creativity, that will stay, I think, because AI can't take over creativity, can't take feelings, not yet, I think. So for me, photography is not only consuming; it's so much more than that. And I think the joy in creating images with your camera, because a lot of people even go back to the analog camera. So I think photography is much more than digital.
Yeah. I like people with large format now. Probably not too. I know there are a few out there, but there's not too many. They've gone back to the nitrate plates and that, which has taken things, I think, to the extreme. But yeah, definitely large format film. There's definitely a movement of people getting into that.
Yeah, because people go back to
SLR film cameras and so forth.
Old lenses, old things, people experiment. So I'm not so afraid about new technologies. I think we have to embrace because it was also when the computer came or internet came, everything was frightening and nobody knew exactly. Of course, we have to be cautious that not our images are being stolen.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. And of course, in business, for magazines, and yeah, it's going to be harder for us. We have to find other ways to sell our work. But yeah,
Have you ever
I think.
been hit by IP theft at all, where somebody's stolen one of your images?
Yeah, but not in big things that they just
Yeah.
put them on the websites and stuff, not for big campaigns or whatever. But it happens. I think
Oh,
if
definitely.
you put your images online, people can steal it, and it happens sometimes. But
Mm.
then if you send an email or whatever, then they remove it from their website or their blog. But it's not always bad. I think
Ah,
if they.
as long as you get some credit for it, I don't.
Yeah, but that I can't live from credit, eh?
No, that's exactly it. Yeah. I think where brands do it, it's a little bit disingenuous to use another photographer or a photographer's work to promote their product
Mhm.
without paying for that. Because if they're
Yeah,
promoting their product, then they should be compensating the photographer. But
yeah, yeah,
if it's another photographer sharing my work, say on Instagram or Threads, and they do a reshare, that's fine.
yeah.
I'm
That's
I'm
fine.
credited. I don't mind. It gets the word out, and people might see my work.
No, but sometimes I'm getting a bit mad and frustrated about magazines saying, "Yeah, but your name will be credited
Oh
and this."
yeah, forget
Yeah, that's
that.
fine. But I can't buy bread from it. And
No,
also
I send them an
festivals that
invoice
we
and
have to.
say you can't
Sorry.
use the image. I send them an invoice and say you can't use the image unless you pay the invoice. Pay the invoice, you can use the image.
Yeah, but no, also big festivals. We have to pay entrance to exhibit in a festival. And often I
Yeah,
say, yeah, hello, if you have no photographers, you don't have a festival. We create the festival.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. We're going to have to wrap up shortly. I've got a couple of questions. One is, who else should I be talking to? Are there any other photographers you think I need to talk to?
There are many, and I don't even know who you all talk to already because
Well,
I
I've,
am.
I've people that I've spoken to and a long list of people waiting to talk to, but
Yeah.
I'm always
Now,
eager to add to it.
have you already talked to Orsalia Haarberg?
I have not.
Okay, that's one. Or Sandra Batoga.
She's on my list, but I haven't got around to actually contacting her yet.
Okay, now that's two female great photographers. Heike
Okay.
Odermatt is also one. Theo Bosboom, it's a colleague of mine from the photo tours and also a great photographer. He's very well known also. So I can give you all list, but
Brilliant. That'll do for now, and I'll make sure they get the mention here on the episode. I've got one more question, and for a lot of people, it's been a burning question since I started the podcast. This is episode 200, and I did make a promise to some of my listeners that I was actually going to give some results at the end of this episode. I haven't actually done the work to finalize the numbers, but I will at the end of this episode tack something on to tell people what the results are. And that is, do you like pineapple on pizza?
pineapple on pizza? No,
Okay.
no,
One in the no
no,
column.
no. Oh no, not at all. I
What
like it
you meant? Sorry?
mozzarella, oregano, garlic, and tomato, and maybe some olive.
Classico. No, fantastic. Fantastic. You mentioned you like to cook. I didn't ask. What do you like to cook?
Asian cooking. I love
Okay.
The Asian food, spicy curries. I love that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's one of my favorite cuisines. That and Italian, I do quite a good spaghetti with meatballs. The secret there with the meatballs is that you get some white bread, soak it in
Yeah.
milk, not so that it's sloppy, rip that up and put that into the mince, and
Yeah.
the just the texture that you get out of that doesn't matter what other spices. I always put loads of spices and things in there, lots
Yeah.
of paprika, etc. But it's the milk-soaked white bread that gets mixed into the mince that really makes
Yeah.
the meatball for me. But
Okay.
yeah.
Did you ever try tuna balls?
No, can't say I have.
And you have to look up online. Jamie Oliver spaghetti with tuna balls. It's with
Okay.
cinnamon, coriander, parmesan. It's brilliant.
Sounds fantastic. I'll definitely have to give that a go. My other favourite is Spanish. I love a paella and I love tapas.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. We can talk about
Anyway,
more for cooking, so don't.
Yeah, this isn't a cooking podcast for those that are
No.
wondering. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you, Kristel. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your wisdom. Where
Thanks
can
for
people
having
find
me.
your work? You mentioned the website earlier, so
Yeah, I mentioned the website. It's myname.com.
fantastic. All right, thank you very much for being on the show.
No, thank you for having me, and good luck with your other podcast.
Cheers. Thanks
Okay.
again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com along with prints and photography gear. I'm also on Vero, Photo, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Grant Swinburne and hope to see you out shooting soon.